Welcome to View from the Top. Our guest this week is President and Chief Executive of Calvin Klein, Tom Murry. Mr. Murry operates the $6 billion apparel giant, which bridges the luxury, contemporary, and denim categories, and operates 700 freestanding stores outside of the U.S. Mr. Murry, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
How's the holiday season shaping up?
So far, so good. You know, the momentum, the trend has been very positive through all of November and the first part of December. So we remain optimistic, not only in the United States, but in the rest of the world as well.
Mm-hmm. And is that true across all the different categories that Calvin Klein operates in?
Yeah, we really don't have a bad business right now. I know that may be hard to believe, but it's true. We really don't. And we're in about 25 different businesses, as you know, starting at our Black Label collection, which is small, but performing well, down to our underwear and jeans and the big businesses.
Mm-hmm. Has one group improved faster than the others?
I would say that we've seen more improvement from the businesses that went down the most during the recession. For example, fragrance was very challenged. Not only ours, but the whole sector was quite challenged. So we've seen a very strong comeback this year. But even the big businesses, whether it be jeans and underwear, that didn't really suffer that much, as much during the recession, have just nice, steady 10% comps right through November. And the trend is good so far in December as well.
When you say fragrance has recovered, can you put a number on it?
I don't really split out their specific numbers, but I would tell you that we're looking at about a 10% increase on a big base this year. And in 2008, that business was actually down. It was roughly flat in 2009. So that's a big recovery on that size of business.
Mm-hmm. And what do you attribute that to? Why fragrance?
Well, I think we've got a large portfolio of fragrances, and we have 4 or 5 of them that are performing quite well. So I think that's really more than anything else a reflection of the economy. Travel retail was very tough during the recession. Travel retail is back strong, just about as strong as ever.
Now, through 2008, 2009, 2010, you've expanded extremely aggressively internationally.
Yep.
How did you make the decision to invest all that money at a time when clearly revenues were not what they had been?
Well, we had discussions with all of our partners around the world in our internal businesses during the end of 2008 to the beginning of 2009. And we said, you know what, we've got one of the strongest brands in the world, and we have capital. So this is an opportunity to grow market share. So we ought to aggressively do everything we can to grow market share. Everybody was on the same page, whether it was Warnaco, our partners, or Coty, our partners, or internal businesses. We also had huge square footage growth in the United States in the department store sector. We picked up almost 2,000 points of sale in spring and fall of 08 and spring and fall of 09. So that's combined 25 businesses throughout the entire department store sector. So we had big market share growth in the United States as well as in Europe and Asia.
And a lot of the focus has been on Asia.
Well, you have about 100 stores right now in China, but we opened in the last year in China. We probably ended up we'll have opened about 40 stores by the end of this year.
And clearly those are in secondary markets as well as the main cities of Beijing.
Mostly tier 1 right now, but we're starting to venture into tier 2 and soon tier 3. So it's a very, very long-term strategy, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you see China as being the biggest market for Calvin Klein in the next 5-10 years? I
don't think, I'm not sure I can see as far as 10 years out, but I would say to you we have about a $6.5 billion business. China will end this year at about $230 million, so it's relatively small, but the business is growing at least 30 or 40% a year in China, which is faster than we're growing in the United States. So is it 10 years? I don't know, but it's possible that at some point in time in the future, it could be our biggest country. It could happen.
Mm-hmm. And is that true across all the different Calvin Klein lines, or is there one sector in particular that's popular or that you use as an entry point?
Yeah, as an entry point, we use jeans and underwear. And the bridge business we don't do in the United States. We only do that in Europe and Asia and the Middle East. Our white label business, which is principally a U.S. department store business, we do not do in Europe and Asia. So configuration of businesses is a little bit different there.
And I know that a number of luxury brands have started e-tail and e-commerce in China recently. Is this something that you are doing?
We haven't done it yet, but we're having discussions about that right now.
And do you expect that to be at some point the largest store in the area?
Certainly the largest single store. It's a relatively small business for us today, but it's growing fast too. And how big can it be? I don't know. We would envision a network of websites globally sometime within the next 3 to 5 years.
And beyond China, which do you think are the most promising emerging markets?
Brazil will double their business this year. Russia's growing rapidly. India is a small business for it right now, but it's going to be doubling this year. So when you think 5, 10 years out, I think those are going to become enormous businesses for us. Fortunately, Calvin is well known everywhere in the world, and fortunately the brand image is very high. So I think we have the opportunity to leverage that.
In revenue terms, what percentage is now contributed by emerging markets, and how do you expect that to grow?
We're still approximately 50% of the business in the United States, about 30% in Europe and the Middle East, and about 20% in Asia, which comprises most of the emerging markets. So I would say it's roughly 20%, and it's a little less than that because you have to factor in Korea and Japan, but in that range, in the high teens, I would say.
And where do you expect it to go?
I think most people can't believe some of the projections about China, but if they're true, then that could become, that region of the world will be more than half of our business, and who knows what percentage of our total business China could represent at that point. 1.3 billion people, rapidly growing affluence in the middle class. It'll be interesting to see.
Do you believe the predictions?
I sort of do. A lot can happen between now and 10 years from now. But I've been going to China for many years, and I still go frequently. And just the expansion, the growth, and the optimism, and the energy in the whole place is really is fascinating to me. So I have a tendency to believe them, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, there's also been a lot of talk about the role that social media is playing in the fashion industry and in driving e-commerce and sales. How present is Calvin Klein on Facebook?
Yeah, well, we're just getting
Twitter.
started. We do have a site on Facebook, and we are exploring. We're trying to understand the business implications of social media, and I'm not quite sure what that is yet. We've had some outside consultants come in, and it's a key initiative of ours, but it's going to be interesting to see how much business it really drives.
Do you think it's really a marketing initiative or something that can actually produce quantifiable numbers?
We'll have to see. I think at this stage of the game, it's really more of a marketing initiative. I can't really see much quantification of actual sales being created by what we're doing. It's a hard thing to quantify.
Do you think there's been a kind of panicked rush on the part of the fashion luxury industry into that space, in the last year or so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it always happens. It's the newest thing. Everybody's talking about it. Let's rush to get into it. And then it sort of sorts itself out, and you understand really how important it is. And it's going to take, some years to sort that out, I think.
Going forward, what is the biggest risk for the fashion luxury industry?
Well, I think probably the biggest risk would be any kind of a double dip in the economy. The other thing are rising material and labor costs. Okay, so that's going to be an issue. I think it's more of an issue at the opening lower price points than the zones that we operate in, but I think it's going to be an issue for everyone. It can also can work in our favor if we deal with it properly. And we have a very strong brand. If we have great products, great execution, we can actually pick up market share in a period like this where complications are created by rising costs.
Mm-hmm. Talking of rising costs, cotton, how is this affecting you?
Just causing our costs to go up. And we're trying to absorb as much of it as we can, but we're going to have to raise our prices a little bit. It's just a fact of life, and we're all on a level playing field here, so everybody's being impacted the same way. But apparel prices have been stagnant for the last 20 years, and that's just not a sustainable model. They are going to go up. It's just a fact of life. How fast they go up is questionable. And you have all of these emerging countries, have all these people consuming raw materials, cotton and so on, so it's going to go up. It's going to be a fact of life.
How much do you think they'll go up?
I think retail will go up between 5 and 10% the second half, 5 and 8, like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier this year, your parent company, Philips Van Heusen, bought Tommy Hilfiger, and some analysts suggested that was in part to strengthen or to help synergize with Calvin Klein's European partners. Has that actually had an effect on you? Well,
actually, the synergy that's taking place there is with our heritage brands. Because most of the Calvin Klein business that's done in Europe is with Warnaco, and Warnaco has their own retail platform and infrastructure over there. They're doing quite well, and Tommy does very well over there, and they've got a great infrastructure too. So really, those are operated separately, Calvin and Tommy. However, as I said, the legacy brands, whether it be Izod or Jeffrey Bean, or Van Heusen or Arrow, those other brands, we see that there are considerable synergies, and we're beginning to see benefits from that already.
Mm-hmm. There's also been some action, some M&A action recently with some private equity companies buying J. Crew. Do you expect this kind of thing to continue in the fashion industry?
Well, I think M&A is going to heat up a little bit as the economy, becomes stronger and deleveraging continues and banks get more confident and all that kind of stuff. And I suspect that it will happen not only in the fashion industry but in other industries. So I would expect to see some increase in that. Yes.
And do you think it will be focused on the more mass end of the fashion industry, or will extend through the luxury end?
I think it could extend through virtually all levels.
There's been a lot of talk about whether or not private equity and fashion are actually meant for each other. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think as long as the people running the business understand the business, then I think that it has a good chance of being successful. I think that when people acquire businesses that don't have a background or expertise in that particular business and have unrealistic expectations, I think that's when they get into trouble.
How about the challenge of working with the creative force that is a designer?
Well, that's always a challenge, but that kind of goes back to my earlier answer, and that is you have to, there are people that understand how to work with designers, and that's the kind of talent you need to assemble to be successful in fashion. So,
but for you as the chief executive who does work with a designer in Francisco Costa and your menswear designer, what do you think it takes for a CEO to work productively with a creative force?
It takes a lot of things, but I think probably the most important thing is mutual respect. And all of our creative directors have been here an average of 10 years. We have 5 of them. Francisco is incredibly talented. He's one of our 5, as you know, for women's collection. But we've been together for many years, and they have a tremendous amount of talent. I respect their talent, and I think they respect my business capabilities, and we've worked together. We've worked together quite well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Murry.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's always a pleasure.